Hey everyone, Teo here. This is my artist review of the OnePlus Pad 2 and OnePlus Stylo 2. This video will be quite long, so if you want to save time, you can check out the text review that I have already written on my blog. The link is in the video description below. First of all, disclaimer, this is not a sponsored review. I have purchased this tablet for review purposes, and after the review, I will sell this away at a loss. So if you want to support my YouTube channel and the work that I do here, there are two ways. The first way is to make your purchases through the affiliate links in the video description below if you have the intention to buy the tablet. And the second way is to donate money. Donating $1 or $2 is the equivalent to watching this video 1,000 or 2,000 times. Let me give you the bottom line up front to help you decide whether to continue watching this video. The hardware is great, the display is bright, beautiful, vibrant, and sharp. Battery life is at least 10 hours. Performance is really smooth. As for drawing performance or experience, well, the pen has some performance issues. This was a sketch I drew yesterday on location and it actually looks fine. However, the drawing performance will vary depending on the app you use. It seems like there is slightly more jitter for the slow diagonal lines compared to the previous tablet, the OnePlus Pad 1 and OnePlus Stylo 1, released last year. This new pen may support 16,000 levels of pressure sensitivity, but I don't think the pen is able to detect minor changes in pressure that well. For example, here you can see me draw some boxes, and I'm going to draw the same boxes with the iPad Pro later. I'm not paying special attention to varying the pressure or varying the line width, and you can see the line width is mostly consistent, uniform. And this is the iPad Pro. I'm going to draw the same boxes again. So notice the difference here. There is line width variation, even though I'm not paying special attention to varying the pressure. You can see thick lines here, thin lines, thin to thick, thin to thick. And even with the words that I write here, you can see there is variation, thick and thin lines. Here you can see this thin line, thick, thin, thick, thin, thick, and tapers. Let's take a look at the OnePlus Pad again. The lines are uniform and they just look more boring because the lines are uniform and consistent. And for the words that I write here, you can see they are uniform. You don't really see thick and thin lines that obviously. Let's do the same thing with Clip Studio Paint. Notice that stroke disappeared. That's because palm rejection doesn't work flawlessly on this tablet. So sometimes when I rest my palm on the display, the lines can undo and disappear, and I have to draw the same lines again. So that's another downside with this tablet. And also sometimes when my palm is on the display, it would actually move the canvas. Okay, see that line? It disappeared because of palm rejection. Okay, so the lines here have slightly more variation. I can see thin lines here, thick lines, but at a glance, I would say the lines are kind of uniform. CSP actually lets you tweak the pressure curve so that you can draw thinner lines more easily, and I have already done so. It's just that it doesn't work that well. So what this means is this pen may have good specifications. It may support 16,000 levels of pressure sensitivity, but I don't think it's able to detect minor changes in pressure that well. And more on that later. The previous pen had issues with tilt sensitivity where you cannot tilt the pen while you are drawing to get the broad strokes, but now you can tilt and tilt back. Another thing you may have already noticed is this display is really reflective, so it's difficult for me to record this video and it's difficult to use the tablet outdoors under bright conditions. If you're using the tablet indoors where the light is not as bright and also the display is brighter, then the display looks great. But when you're outdoors, this is what you have to deal with. So that's pretty much the bottom line. I feel like the Xiaomi Pad 6s Pro with the Xiaomi Focus Pen, they have better pen performance than this. And since I no longer have the previous OnePlus Pad and OnePlus Stylo, I cannot tell you with certainty that this pen is actually better or worse than last year's pen. But from what I can see, it seems like it does have slightly more wobble and jitter with slow diagonal lines. And of course, the Apple Pencil and the Samsung S Pen, they both have better pen performance than this. And now on to the full review. Let's look at the items included in the box, which I did not bring. You get the tablet, there is the quick start guide and warranty info, and there is this USB-A to USB-C charging cable. Here in Singapore, there is no charger included, so you have to buy that separately. And you have to buy the OnePlus charger that supports 67 watt charging in order to get the maximum charging speed. With my 140 watt charger that I was testing with, I was only able to get 32 watt charging for this tablet. Let's talk about the design of this tablet. This is a beautiful looking tablet. The design is clean and simple. The corners are rounded off, including the corners for the LCD display. The sides are also rounded off, so this tablet is quite comfortable to hold. On the side here, there are 4 slits for the speakers, and there are 6 speakers in this tablet. That's the power button. There is no fingerprint scanner here. Volume controls. There is no SIM card tray. There is no support for micro SIM card as well. And this is the bottom. 4 more slits for the speakers. That's the USB-C charging port with USB 3.2 Gen 1 speed. This can output video, but because there is no desktop mode for this tablet, it can only mirror what's on the display. And one thing I noticed about the edge here is it seems like this part here is raised slightly higher than the glass. So the metal frame is higher on the left and right sides, but not for the longer sides for some reason. The build quality of this tablet is solid. This is the Nimbus Grey color, which is the only color available. The back is matte textured, and this can be quite slippery, so be careful when you're handling the tablet. I almost dropped this tablet on the first day, and that's the main camera, which is the single camera with a flashlight. The front camera is here in landscape orientation, and this supports face unlock. And from what I have read online, I didn't actually test it, this is level 1 security face unlock, which means you may not be able to use this with high security apps such as banking apps. The weight of this tablet is 584 grams, which is slightly heavier than what I would prefer. The weight and the size is actually the main reason why I switched from using a 12.9-inch iPad Pro to an 11-inch iPad Pro, which is currently 444 grams. So the 11-inch iPad Pro is noticeably lighter compared to this tablet. I sketch with my tablet outdoors quite often, so when I have to hold the tablet with one hand and draw with the other hand like this, it can get tiring quite quickly because of the weight and because you have to balance the tablet across this way. So when sketching outdoors, I usually rest the tablet on my lap while I'm seated on my portable stool or have the tablet on a table. If I have to stand and sketch, I will usually hold the tablet this way because it's easier to balance the tablet. Now when you are holding the tablet and drawing like this, I find that I usually do not rest my palm on the display, and when I do not rest my palm on the display, the pen is actually more slippery, so it's more difficult to control the lines. And one thing I discovered yesterday while drawing this is my hand covered the main camera here, and the auto brightness actually became dim. When I removed my hand, the display became bright, and when it's covered, it became dim. But today when I tried to replicate that, I wasn't able to do so, so I'm not sure what happened. The OnePlus Pad has 600 nits brightness for the display and up to 900 nits in high brightness mode. And this is how the display, how 600 nits looks besides the 1000 nits OLED display on the iPad Pro 11-inch. And the difference, as you can see, is very obvious under direct sunlight. And this is how both tablets look under the shade, but I'm still outdoors, so the difference is still quite noticeable. Now, when I'm using the OnePlus tablet outdoors under bright conditions, I did not notice the display dimming, which is good, but the brightness is not good enough for use under direct sunlight. But for outdoors under the shade, it's still okay. A good LCD display can still look great, and this is actually a great looking LCD display unless you have a brighter OLED display by the side to compare with. So this is still considered really bright. It's very bright when you're using this indoors. The colors are vibrant, the visuals are sharp. The resolution is 3000 by 2120 and the PPI is about 303 if I remember correctly. This tablet has 3 color modes, Natural, Pro and Vivid. Natural looks most natural to me. And you can adjust the color temperature manually as well. Auto brightness works fine most of the time, but there is the issue that I mentioned earlier. Adaptive Tone can adjust the color temperature of the display automatically, but this doesn't work that well because sometimes the color temperature shift is very dramatic. This tablet has 144 Hz adaptive refresh rate, so scrolling web pages and animation will look really smooth. The display is laminated, so there is no gap between the glass and the LCD. So when drawing, there is no gap between the line and the pen tip. This display is quite reflective, and this is how reflections look when you are in a bright environment. And even when there is no light source facing the display, it looks like this. And just for comparison purposes, this is how the iPad Pro with the anti-reflective coating looks. So the reflection is actually not as glaring. And when it's not facing any lights, it looks like this. And I can barely see my own reflection, but here with the OnePlus Pad, you can see reflections. Let's talk about the OS, Oxygen OS version 14.1. I find the features quite limiting, so if you want more features, you will have to find some app from the Google Play Store to get those features. But as long as the OS is stable, which it is, it's fine for me. Let's talk about some issues that affect me. The default file browser does not have integration with online storage services such as Google Drive, Dropbox, Microsoft OneDrive, so you don't see the cloud storage services here. Anyway, if you are creating artworks, you can still export your artworks directly from the drawing app to those cloud services once you have those apps installed. So it's not, I would say, a big deal or big issue. One issue that annoys me with the OS is there is no way to rotate vertical apps when you're using the tablet in landscape orientation. For example, this is a shopping app that I use, which is designed for the phone, so it's a vertical app, which looks alright when the tablet is vertical. But when I rotate the tablet to landscape, the app cannot rotate. And there is no settings in the OS where you can rotate the app. With the Samsung tablets, you can choose to force rotate the app, but you can't do that with OnePlus. I mean, there is a setting inside somewhere, but this app is not listed as one that can be rotated. Another annoying issue that I discovered with the OS is there is this gesture that lets you swipe up from the bottom to the right or to the left to switch between apps, and I would activate this feature quite often when my palm is resting on the display, even though my palm is nowhere near the bottom to swipe up. So it's annoying, and there is no way to disable that particular gesture. One potential deal breaker with this tablet for me are the backup options, and there are two options which do not back up the whole tablet. So you can choose to back up the tablet with Google Drive, but I backed this up yesterday and it only backed up 23 megabytes for the apps. I have 700 over megabyte for Infinite Painter files, and the data, the files within the apps are not backed up. The second option is to use OnePlus Backup, which will create a local file on the tablet which you have to transfer out, and even that option doesn't back up the data saved within the apps. Multitasking features with OnePlus Open Canvas is quite cool and pretty useful. So in the settings, you can enable this gesture where you use two fingers to split the app that you are using. And you can open another app. So now you have this split screen mode. You can adjust the size of the windows, but you cannot drag this all the way here. You have to drag it to the middle and then drag it here. And if you want to focus this app, just tap on it. If you want to add another app, you can do so. Just swipe out from this panel, this sidebar here, and this allows you to add additional apps, which is very useful. So to add a third app for multitasking, just drag an app here. You can actually open the app drawer and drag the app here, or you can just drag it from here if you have the app here. And this pop-up will appear, so drag it on top of this panel, this pop-up, and now you have this split, three-way split. So if you tap here, you can expand the app to make it larger, like this. If you want to focus this app or use this app, just tap here. If you want to make this larger, just tap here, expand. Yeah, so I find this to be quite useful. This is the OnePlus Stylo 2, sold separately for US $99. I'm not sure if this is compatible with the old tablet or if the old pen is compatible with the new tablet. The build quality is quite solid, and this is almost cylindrical in shape except for this flat side which can attach magnetically to the side of the tablet for pairing and charging. The magnets are strong. Now if you have to get a case for the tablet, I recommend you get a case where there is a flap to protect the pen to prevent the pen from dislodging, because you don't want to damage this expensive pen. I don't know the battery life, but you don't have to worry about battery life if you keep the pen attached to the tablet by the side most of the time. This pen is probably made with plastic because I don't see how you can create this leather-like texture with metal. And this texture provides a good grip with this pen. The pen tip is replaceable, and this is the screw-on type of pen tip. I'm not sure if this is the same pen tip as the earlier pen, but you should probably be able to find replacement now since the earlier pen has been out for more than a year. This pen supports palm rejection, tilt sensitivity, and up to 16,000 levels of pressure sensitivity. Other features include double tap shortcuts, but that only works with the OnePlus Notes app. There is also haptic feedback where the pen will vibrate slightly when you are writing or drawing with the OnePlus Notes app. So the double tap shortcut and the haptic doesn't work with third-party Notes app or drawing apps. In other words, this is a pen with no side button and no eraser. Let's test the latency. So this is OnePlus Notes app where you can really see the 2 milliseconds latency. So the gap between the line and the pen tip is minimal, and you will not get this level of performance with third-party drawing apps, unfortunately. This is Medibank Paint, and I can see more latency here. So the gap between the line and the pen tip is bigger. Infinite Painter, not too bad. Clip Studio Paint, this has more latency, quite similar to Medibank Paint, and this is without any stabilization. Time for the line quality test, and the app that I'm using is Medibank Paint, and this is how thick the brush is. Let's draw some slow diagonal lines with minimal pressure. I can see slight jitter, but it's not too bad. There definitely is slight jitter. Unfortunately, I do not have the previous tablet and pen, so I cannot compare the two side by side. The thing is, sometimes the lines can be straighter, relatively speaking, but sometimes there is more jitter. Next, let's look at how the strokes taper. This is pretty good. The strokes are able to taper smoothly and sharply. Line transition from thin to thick. You can see the latency again. Okay, so here you can see there is slight wobble or jitter, and as I draw faster, the line is smoother. The transition is quite smooth, but as I try to draw the thin lines again, it's quite difficult for me to draw those thin lines, and I mean thin lines like this. The thing here is, if I draw the thin lines very consciously, yes, I can get the thin lines, but if I'm drawing like this with one single stroke, thin, thick, and thin, it's difficult for me to get the thin lines again. So this tells me the pen has some difficulty detecting minor changes with pressure when drawing with minimal pressure. Let's draw some dots. Works fine. Let's draw some boxes. This is actually a really simple test that I use for pen tablets, pen displays, and portable tablets like this. Now, at a glance, I would say the line width for all these boxes is quite uniform. I don't really see much variation. I mean, there is this variation here where the line is thinner, but you can see for all the other boxes, the line width is quite consistent. And this is indicative of the pen not being able to detect those minor changes with pressure. So here's a sketch I drew yesterday on the OnePlus Pad 2 with Medibank Paint, and at a glance I can see the lines, they are mostly uniform. Yes, when I am paying very special attention to vary the pressure, I can get the thin lines. But the thing is, when I am drawing this very quickly, not paying very special attention to how much pressure I apply, the lines are mostly uniform. So this is not something I like. When I draw, I want the lines to have variation with the line width. So this is one downside with the pen, even though this pen is said to support 16,000 levels of pressure sensitivity. Usually when the pen performance is good, I will test it with one app. And if the pen performance is questionable, I will test it with more apps. So this is Infinite Painter. Somehow there is slightly more line wobble or jitter with slow diagonal lines. Anyway, this will be more obvious when you are actually drawing with the pen, because sometimes the line tests may not be totally representative of the performance you will get with real life drawing. So while drawing, the app suddenly switched. That's because I activated this shortcut even though my palm is right here. The strokes, they don't taper smoothly and sharply. See how this tapers? And sometimes there is this shoelace effect where it would taper into this rounded, and you can see that here as well. Line transition from thin to thick. Okay, for this app, I can draw the thinner lines more easily compared to Medibank because I adjusted the pressure curve. Now this is still a diagonal line, so you can see noticeable diagonal line wobble even with the thick lines. Here I'm drawing faster, so it's smoother, but when I'm drawing with moderate speed, you can see the wobble. This is Infinite Painter on the iPad Pro, and I can see the issue with the stroke end as well. You can see the dot here, 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 here. So it could be an issue with the app, which is why sometimes it's important to test the same app across different tablets. Let's look at the line transition. Thick, thin, thick, thin, thick. Okay, so this is a diagonal line, and there is slight jitter, but it's not as obvious compared to the line you can see on the OnePlus Pad. This is Clip Studio Paint, so let's just do the line transition test. Thick, thin, thick, thin, thick. I have also tweaked the pressure curve, so it's easy for me to draw the thin lines after drawing the thick lines, but you can still see the wobble and jitter with the diagonal lines here. And for Clip Studio, sometimes when I tap on the display, the dots do not appear for some reason. But for the other apps, tapping will create dots easily. This is Krita. I'm showing you Krita just to show you tilt works. And the cursor is able to follow the direction of the pen, and there is cursor hover. You can see the cursor when the pen is close enough to the display. This is Concepts. The line quality I can get with this app is normal. It's quite similar to what I can get with other tablets. What I want to show you is tilt performance. So this is a pencil, and when I tilt, you can see the broad strokes, and when I tilt back, I can get the thin lines, broad, thin, so tilt works. With the previous tablet and the previous pen, it is not possible to tilt the pen and get the broad strokes. So with the previous tablet, when I tilt the pen, I still get the thin lines, but now you can get thin, broad, thin with one stroke. This is the view I'm looking at right now, and I like this view, except it's not great for drawing for a review because it's mostly horizontal and straight lines. So I want to draw something with diagonal lines so that you guys can see whether the diagonal line wobble or jitter can affect drawing. So this is a really good spot for me. Good as in it's really shady. I have already drawn the drafting line, so let's sketch. Now this is not going to be a precision drawing for many reasons. One of the main reasons is I'm tilting the tablet at a very steep angle so that the camera can point directly at it. And you can see the reflection is quite obvious. So this is one thing I don't like about this tablet. There is just so much reflection. But thankfully the brightness of the display is actually high enough to go through the reflection. So as I am drawing, I can see that the lines are starting to look kind of uniform. So if I want to draw a very thin line, I have to be very conscious about drawing the thin lines. This is how thick the line really is. So the pen is sensitive, yes, but it seems to have some problems when it comes to detecting minimal changes in pressure. I will definitely not sketch something like this while standing because it can be quite tiring. And also when you're standing and sketching, you're holding the tablet with one hand, the tablet is moving, your hand is moving. It's quite difficult to control the line when there are two things moving. Finger gestures work fine. So as much as possible, I'm going to try and place my palm on the display so that you can see whether palm rejection works fine or not. The pen tip is quite smooth on the display, so it can be quite challenging to control the pen tip. So this will take some time to get used to. And also, because of how smooth the pen tip is, when you are holding the tablet like this without any support and you're drawing, it is even more challenging because the pen will just glide around so easily. As for the diagonal line wobble, for this app it's not too much of an issue. Yep, I have zero correction for the line, so the line is not stabilized. I can draw straight lines quite easily. There's no noticeable diagonal line wobble issues here. Oops, that is an accidental undo. Okay, all seems fine. Oops, second time it happened because sometimes I rest my palm on the display, sometimes I lift my palm, so when I put my palm down, sometimes it will just undo. This size, this is actually a really good size to draw with. This is big, 12.1 inch. I'll consider 12.1 inch to be big. In fact, I would say this is probably comparable to the iPad Pro 12.9 inch, which I do not have right now, so I cannot show you the difference in size. Oops, another accidental undo. So at this point, I can probably tell you that palm rejection is not flawless. Palm rejection is not flawless. So when you have to redraw after an accidental undo, it is actually quite annoying because you have to waste a lot more time to draw the same thing again. If you want more control with the pen, you may want to apply a matte screen protector on it. But just note that adding a screen protector on the display may introduce more glare when you are working with the tablet outdoors. For example, right now, if there is a matte screen protector on this tablet, this reflection will be diffused until the whole display, like the whole display, is white. It can be so glaring that you can't see what's on the display. So that's one downside of having a matte screen protector when you're using the tablet outdoors. And that is the reason why I stopped using matte screen protectors. Another thing about matte screen protector with this particular tablet is the aspect ratio is 7:5, so I'm not sure how easy it is to buy or find a screen protector with that aspect ratio. And notice just now as I was drawing, there was another accidental undo. So it is really irritating. It is really irritating. And let's see if I can, switch off the undo. So Minibank Paint actually has the setting that lets you disable the undo, which is great. So now there should be no more accidental undos, but if you want to undo, you will have to use the shortcut buttons. Yeah. So it's either this or that, unfortunately. So with the iPad, oops, so now I want to undo, I cannot, so I have to use the shortcut. With the iPad or the Samsung tablets, the palm rejection works quite flawlessly, I would say. I don't really have any issues with the palm rejection. I mean, the palm rejection does use some software, some intelligence to detect whether to reject your palm. So with one column of palette by the side, there is still a good amount of space to draw. This is really spacious to draw with. Now if you're using Clip Studio Paint where you can add another palette here, then the space will be smaller, but say still okay, I guess. But it's best to have just one palette or no palettes by the side. So this will give you more space. And also if you have the palette by the side and you are resting your palm on it, sometimes your palm may activate some of the buttons here because palm rejection doesn't work that flawlessly. So let me just remove that to reduce the problem with palm rejection. Let me just erase this again. There are many wonderful drawing apps available on Android. Medibank Paint is actually a pretty good app. So I just had leg cramp while sitting cross-legged. I've just switched to a different sitting position, which is more comfortable and easier for me to record, easier for the camera to record the video. Latency can be an issue if you're drawing really quickly, like when you're doing very quick sketches, but this is my normal drawing speed and I'm fine with the latency. In fact, I don't even notice the latency unless I am testing for it. It has started to rain, so now I cannot sit outside anymore as this tablet does not have IP rating. So you notice that started earlier. That's because my palm is here at the bottom, so it's trying to use this shortcut, which can happen quite often if you have a palm below. And as mentioned earlier, there is unfortunately no way to disable the shortcut. So far, the main issue that I have with this app is just the line width is quite consistent. It's quite uniform. I don't get that line variation that I want. I wish there could be more line variation, but it's not possible with this tablet and this pen. So pressure sensitivity levels is not everything. A pen with just 4,000 levels of pressure sensitivity can still outperform a pen with 16,000 levels of pressure sensitivity. I guess depending on how you hold the pen, you may be able to draw thinner lines more easily. So right now I'm actually holding the pen at a lower angle. So this actually allows me to draw thinner lines a bit more easily. So how difficult it is to draw straight lines with this pen and tablet. This is obviously straight enough. You can see some wobble here. If you really want to have perfectly straight lines, you can use the digital ruler. There is nothing special about my coloring. I'm just using the solid fill tool to block in the big shapes. So this building is just gray and white, so it's really easy to color. Another advantage of having the 7:5 aspect ratio is this tablet is still very usable in portrait orientation as long as you don't have the column of palette by the side. Right, so this is the completed sketch. Let me just turn this, remove the palette to let you see the sketch bigger. So let's save this. So as I'm saving this file, I'm reminded of how I should manage my artworks. So for Medibank Paint, you can choose to save the file onto the tablet or onto the cloud storage, and I have saved the file onto cloud storage, just so that in the event that I lose the tablet or the tablet is damaged, I will still have a backup. And now let's draw with Infinite Painter. So I'm just going to create a really quick sketch of a vent that I see in front of me. So for this app, I can set the finger to move the canvas, and later when you see the canvas move suddenly, it's due to palm rejection not working properly, and hence the finger will move the canvas. So this is just a vent that is parked in front of me. Notice the accidental undo. That is palm rejection not working well again. Now for this app, Infinite Painter, I feel like my lines are, notice that is due to the finger gesture also. I noticed for this app, for some reason, my lines are more wobbly compared to Millibank Paint. Even though I did not have stabilization for the brush with Millibank Paint as well. So this is another accidental gesture. This is the double tap to frame the drawing shortcut, which I have enabled. So palm rejection is not perfect. Yeah. Now I have tweaked the pressure curve for Infinite Painter, so it's actually easier for me to draw thin lines more easily. So now you can see I can draw thin lines and thick lines more obviously. Yeah, you can see this curve, I was just drawing like this, and even so this curve has wobble to it. Yeah. So different apps will have, unfortunately, different drawing performance issues. I don't think Infinite Painter can be used to create precision art simply because of the wobble and also how slippery the pen is. Let me show you another sketch that I drew with Infinite Painter. So this is just line art, and for the diagonal lines you can see there is the wobble, there is the noticeable wobble, but this is not the digital wobble. For certain pens, when you draw that diagonal line, there is this pattern. Now this is not a pattern, this is just not straight. Yeah, this is not the pattern, the wobble pattern. So it could be my technique. But the thing is, when I use other apps, it's fine. So I'm not sure what's happening here. Yeah, I can get thin and thick lines here with this app. You can see the thin lines, thick lines. Yeah, so there is line variation. And the line variation here is better compared to Millibank Paint. Let me show you the issue with tilt brushes with Infinite Painter. So one of my favorite brushes to use with this app is Dry Inker. This allows you to draw thin lines, and when you press down you get thicker lines and you get the rough edges, which kind of looks nice. Now with this brush you can draw thin, thick, and when you tilt you can get broad strokes like this. But the thing is, it's very difficult to control the broad strokes. What I want is actually this part here. So I cannot get that stroke consistently. So if I tilt too low, I will get the smudges. So I have to be very precise with tilting. And even so, it's difficult for me to control this. Now this brush is much easier to control on the Samsung tablet with the Samsung S Pen. And this is Sketchbook, where tilt works perfectly. So this is with minimal pressure. When I press down hard, you can see the darker lines, and when I tilt, you can see the broad strokes. So I can have thin, thick, broad, thin, broad, thin, broad, thin. So the performance here is very predictable. Let me show you concepts which works pretty well with this pen, because this app is actually quite forgiving even if your pen performance is not that great. And thankfully it works well because Concepts is one of my favorite drawing apps. So let me just turn off the colors to let you see the line quality. So you can see thin and thick lines. So this will create variation. There is line width variation. You can see thin and thick lines here. You can also see the rough edges with this particular brush that I'm using, watercolor B4. Thin lines here, thick lines. So there is a good mix of thin and thick, and for the circular marks here you can see there are thicker parts. Yeah. Now when I zoom in and out, you may see the screen redraw. This is quite common because sometimes when I zoom out you will see white spaces. It happens on the iPad as well. Now it's almost evening time and the sky is not that bright anymore, and now you can see the reflections are not that obvious anymore. So if you're using the tablet in bright conditions, the reflections are just more obvious. So I believe I have covered almost everything I wanted to say about this tablet. Now when the pen performance is good, the review is very easy to make. But when the pen performance is not that great, it's not ideal, I usually have to do more testing to find out what's wrong. And I have to test with different apps because when the pen performance is not ideal, for some reason, different apps will perform differently. The line quality you can get with different apps will be different, as you can see in this review. So is this tablet good enough for drawing? I am not sure. It depends on the app you use. So my main app is Concepts and it works fine with this tablet. If you are using Clip Studio, should be alright, except there will be noticeable latency. Mediabank Paint works fine, I guess, except it's kind of difficult to get the thin lines unless you are really particular about controlling your pressure. And the thing is, when I'm drawing, I don't want to be that particular about controlling the pressure. I just want to draw normally, you know. If I have time, I will make a comparison review between Samsung Tab S9 Ultra versus the OnePlus Pad 2 with the pen, because it's going to be interesting to see how the Samsung S Pen, which has been around for many years, how it competes with this new pen. Alright, so before I end this video, if you guys have the intention to buy this tablet or the pen or anything, consider using the affiliate links that I have for you in the video description below to support my YouTube channel and the work that I do here. I get to earn some money, but at no extra cost to you. See you guys in the next video. Bye!